While a plant-only or vegan diet is nutritionally adequate, safe, and healthy dietary pattern, there is no discounting that there's certain key nutrients within a plant-exclusive diet which aren't always accounted for. And when we go into a fat loss phase, we're also reducing calorie intake, meaning we're not getting as much food as we would as if we were in maintenance or a surplus, further increasing our need for certain nutrients. So in this presentation, we're just going to dive into what supplements we need, what essential nutrients we need, and then what are some other ones that we might want to pay closer attention to. So are they actually necessary? There are in fact specific nutrients that vegans will struggle to obtain purely through food alone. Also, when you're eating less food, you will also be eating fewer micronutrients, so your vitamins and minerals. And some studies of popular diets have found that they are actually micronutrient deficient. Therefore, during a fat loss phase, it's a good idea to create a nutritional safety net and have a daily multivitamin or a few specific vitamins and minerals that we're going to cover. But first, the key here is to first focus on maximizing nutrient uptake from your food, from your whole foods. Some keys for this one: use a plate model. So use that plate model we've discussed earlier around building that plate around the whole foods, a good protein source, your low calorie density vegetables, lots of variety in there, your legumes, your whole grains, using that plate model to establish a foundation of eating. Consume majority whole foods, so predominantly foods that are limited processing, or at least a positively processed food that is going to provide a lot more benefit to you from the increase in added things like vitamins and minerals to those foods. For example, plant milks. Prioritize variety and color, so you're getting a lot of variety in your foods, therefore you're going to be able to get a lot more diversity in your micronutrients. And avoid extended periods in aggressive calorie deficits. So if you are going through an aggressive fat loss phase at the moment, great, totally fine to do. However, at the same time, we want to be aware of how long we're doing that for and the amount of time that we're not actually giving our body adequate nutrients, calories, and of course adequate micronutrients due to the lower intake of food. The Daily Dozen is a decent reminder of what to hit when we are looking at an adequate whole food, nutrient-dense diet. And then we want to supplement the necessaries, which is what we're going to be covering in this presentation. So how this actually looks, what you might do is have a day of eating where you start off with a smoothie. You might then go ahead and have a plate model meal, another plate model meal, and then having a snack, and then your supplements. And the way this is broken down would be to have a smoothie that prioritizes obviously protein, having your protein powder in there, which is also often fortified with other key micronutrients such as iron, including berries, including spinach, calcium fortified milk, so like almond milk, and some chia or flaxseed in that smoothie as well. You're covering a lot of bases there for nutrients. It's a great way to start your day. Then with your plate model, you're prioritizing a plate model focusing on vegetable diversity, so lots of different types of plants, legumes, whole grains, fermented foods, all of that good stuff. And then you might add some seeds on top of that for extra vitamins and minerals, and of course potentially adding some fruit to the meal as well. Same goes for another plate model meal throughout the day as well, so you got two of those. And then you might include your snack, which might be a chia protein pudding, which is going to obviously have a huge amount of protein, but also the benefits of the chia, so the omega-3s and the fiber, and the berries and maybe some plant milk in there for some added calcium. And then finally, using a vegan essentials supplement to ensure you're getting the base level things that you need that you're potentially not going to be getting from your food. Now, what are those actual nutrients we're not getting from our food? There's a few key ones. There's three main ones that we're probably not going to be getting in large quantities from our food. We're going to cover those, and we'll discuss some nutrients of focus as well. So essentials that we are going to want to supplement. B12. Right, everyone probably knows this one already, but let's run through it. Do we need it? It's important for healthy nerve cells, production of DNA, red blood cells production as well. So a lot of I guess intricate parts of human physiology. A B12 deficiency may take a while to have an effect, but can cause anemia and problems with our nervous system and brain. So it's definitely something we want to be aware of and we want to avoid. And one of the common, I guess, issues I do see with a lot of people is that they will go vegan and decide, hey, look, yeah, I probably need a B12, but I haven't got around to it. And you leave that too long and there is a potential for deficiency there. So you want to start taking that pretty much straight away as soon as you transition to a predominantly plant-based diet. Vitamin B12 is found in virtually all animal foods, but there's no really good plant foods that are reliable sources. And we're going to cover where you can get it in a moment. Vitamin B12 is formed by bacteria, so it does not have to come from animals. To avoid serious long-term health complications, simply follow these guidelines and have your B12 tested every year or so. So you get that regular yearly blood test, see where your B12 levels are at, and you can basically dictate based off that blood test how effective your supplementation strategies have been. So some symptoms of low B12: fatigue, feeling faint, breathlessness, headaches, really common ones. And some sources where you can get some B12 from your food: fortified plant milks. So a lot of your soy milks, almond milks will have B12 added to them. It is a low dose. And then nutritional yeast as well is a great one that I include on a lot of my meals, like those plate models we discussed earlier, a sort of a Buddha bowl type macro bowl where I'll just add nutritional yeast in there. You can add it to cooking. Great source of B12, also great source of protein. Now the dosing here is 1,000 mcgs 2 to 3 times a week. So you can do like a loaded dose, or it would be just a bolus dose 2 to 3 times a week, or you can just do a daily dose if that's better for you to create that habit of taking the supplement on a daily basis, and that would be around 100 mcgs per day, or micrograms per day. So really simple one. There is a bit of variance and recommendations on B12, so just be aware of that. And you can always go off the recommendation from your doctor, or based on the blood test that you get, you can then put together a bit of a strategy to dose properly for B12. Now, vitamin D is the second one that is an essential nutrient we will likely need to supplement. Do we need it? Vitamin D is quite hard to find in foods, but is found in fortified products and supplementation. Most vitamin D is actually synthesized when UV rays from the sun hit our skin, right? So when we're outdoors. It improves immune function, so really essential for immune function, and bone health through calcium absorption. And reduces depressive symptoms, and potentially has some benefit for improving strength and fat loss as well. So there is some data there on that. Your symptoms of low vitamin D are going to be fatigue, muscle weakness, aches in the joints, can lead to rickets in children, and osteoporosis in adults. So it is a real key one that a lot of the Western populations are deficient in, especially if they live the Northern Hemisphere, where there's a lot more months of the year without adequate sunlight, or even if there is sunlight, people are wrapped up and they're not spending a lot of time outside with their skin exposed. So it is one that is quite prevalent in Western populations, as having low vitamin D. And just for the purposes of increasing bone mineral density alone, and of course the immune function side of vitamin D, it's an essential one that we want to include in decent amounts. Now the dosing, we want to spend at least 5 to 30 minutes in the sun from about 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Keep sun exposure to a minimum, as UV is also a carcinogen, so we have to be aware of how much sun exposure we are getting. So between 5 to 30 minutes is great, with a decent amount of your skin exposed. Easy to do in summer, not so easy to do in winter. So that's where the supplementation comes in. Supplement if required during winter months, or get a blood test just to make sure where you're at. If your blood test during winter is showing that you're fine, then you might not need to supplement. You might be outdoors enough, you might be getting enough sunlight. But I think for a lot of people, specifically in winter time, is a great time to supplement with vitamin D. 1,000 IUs per day is the recommendation. Many D3 supplements are derived from animal sources, so be aware of that when you're selecting one. You can just search vegan D3 on any kind of supplement website and you'll find a vegan option. And lastly, for the essentials, EPA and DHA, or your omega-3s. Do we need it? Unsaturated fats are important for cardiovascular health. They're important for eye and brain function. There's a stack load of research on specifically EPA and DHA. There's three types of omega-3s. We've got ALA, which is the plant derivative. We've got DHA and EPA. Well, I should say ALA is the most common plant derivative, but DHA and EPA can also be sourced from plants, e.g. algae, but often most people get their DHA and EPA from consumption of seafood. So EPA and DHA found in fish, seafood, eggs, and meat. Vegan sources is your microalgae, or you can get LAA from your chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds, walnuts, and canola oil is another good option. Plant-based sources lacking in EPA and DHA, however, can still be obtained in significant amounts through ALA, which is converted to EPA and DHA in the body. The only issue with this is that the process is not that effective. It's not that efficient. There's only about 8 to 20% of ALA is converted to EPA, and it's even worse for DHA, which is potentially even more important for us, which is only 0.5 to 9% conversion from ALA to DHA. So we do want conversion of ALA, I'm really struggling with that one. We do want conversion of ALA to EPA and DHA as much as we can. So we do have to take a decent amount of the plant sources such as chia and flax to get this conversion. Reducing intake of omega-6 fatty acids can inhibit the conversion of ALA to EPA and DHA. That really should say having a high intake of omega-6s can inhibit the absorption, or the conversion. So reducing your intake of omega-6s, such as sunflower, safflower, corn, sesame, and grapeseed oils, those types of oils are going to be higher in your omega-6s, so you want to be aware of that and potentially reduce those slightly so you can enhance the conversion from basically your plant sources into the EPA and DHA, which is what we want. So that's something to be aware of when you're looking at products. How much of these vegetable oils do they have, and can I reduce that slightly? When it comes to dosing, best case scenario is the supplement, right? Grab yourself an algae-based supplement with around 300 milligrams of DHA alone, or you can go for a mix of DHA and EPA that's equal to around 500 milligrams of total omega-3. So when you're looking on the back of that bottle, make sure there's at least 300 milligrams of DHA, or at least a total of 500 milligrams of omega-3s. Okay, that's what you're looking for on the bottle. If cost is a factor though, so obviously this is not going to be applicable to everybody. It does cost to grab an algae-based omega-3, a lot more expensive than fish oils. Over time, this will improve because the market is demanding it. If cost is a factor, rely on the body's conversion of ALA to EPA and DHA by increasing your intake of ALA sources. So just like we discussed, increase your intake of chia, flaxseed, hemp, walnuts, canola oil. Taking 3 grams of ALA per day, and some top forms of ALA in the form of, like we discussed, flax seeds, flaxseed oil, chia seeds, canola oil, walnuts, right? We do also want to be aware of the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio here, as you can see in the second column, where some of the better options there are your chia seeds and your flax seeds, and maybe not so good is your things like walnuts, where the omega-6s are a little bit higher in the ratio, so they may inhibit to some extent the conversion of that ALA into EPA and DHA, if that makes sense. But you can see there on the right column how much of that particular food source you would need to consume to hit that amount of ALA. So flax seeds, 1.6 grams of ALA per tablespoon, and when you're looking at chia seeds, 5 grams per ounce. English walnuts, 2.6 grams of ALA per 14 half. So you can see how easy it would be to sort of hit that threshold of 3 grams of ALA per day just by having a tablespoon of ground flaxseed and a handful of walnuts each day. Super simple, super easy to do, nothing to be worried about. But again, one of the easiest things to do is to go for an algae-based supplement if you can afford that. Now, lastly here, just some nutrients of focus that we might run through really quickly, just to give you an idea of some of the other micronutrients. vitamins and minerals that you need to be aware of on a vegan diet, specifically while you're in a calorie deficit. Iron, number one, obviously a really popular one that people like to talk about a fair amount, and it is popular for a reason. However, the absorption of iron from plants is low. What you can do is add some vitamin C to your meal, so some strawberries, add some capsicum, add some oranges, whatever it is to your meals to increase absorption of iron. It's a really cool tip. You may want to avoid tea and coffee with meals just because of the tannins that are involved in those products, and they inhibit the absorption of iron. So it might just be a case of, look, if you're going to have a tea or a coffee, have it an hour either side of your meal as opposed to with your meal. Increasing foods such as legumes, spinach, tofu, and cashews, all those good foods you're going to be eating anyway on a predominantly whole food plant-based diet. And next up we have calcium. So another big one that's probably pretty important for us to be focusing on. Great sources, tofu, fortified plant milks are awesome. Kale, bok choy, your leafy greens, legumes, figs, almonds, and seeds. So again, a lot of these foods is just common foods that us as plant-based eaters will eat anyway, but it's just focusing on them a little bit more. If you know, hey, look, I want to increase my calcium, maybe going for tofu and some leafy greens on a more regular basis than usual. Zinc is another one. You can get this from fermented, heated, and soaked sprouted seeds. Legumes reduces the amounts of phytates and increases absorption of minerals like zinc. So if you're gonna, have some seeds or legumes, you might want to just soak them for a while or get into sprouting as well. I've gotten into sprouting myself. It's really enjoyable. Just getting some sprouting seeds, might be like broccoli seeds or lentils, and sprout those and add those to your meals as well. Great way to increase the absorption of zinc. Foods like tempeh, tofu, lentils, chickpeas, and almonds are great sources for zinc. Again, some of those common foods. Selenium, really simple one. This one, it's consuming a variety of nuts, seeds, and legumes. And to be sure, you can just eat 1 to 2 Brazil nuts per day. And that's just creating that habit, having a little jar of Brazil nuts in your house, having one a day, and just being happy with that being your dose of selenium, and you'll probably be good to go there. Iodine as well is the last one here. All we need to do for iodine is just take a quarter teaspoon of iodized salt per day. So that's just your generic table salt that you'll see in the supermarket. Quarter teaspoon per day, throw it in some cooking on your meals, whatever it may be, and that will provide the iodine. You can obviously get iodine from things like seaweed, kelp, things like this, but the dosage, the intake of that is going to be very varied between different products. And with some of those products, some of those seaweed products, you also want to be aware of overdosing iodine as well. And I'm not too sure on the exact numbers you would need to take to overdose on iodine, but it's just one of those things you want to be aware of. So it's probably not a great idea to be smashing a whole bunch of seaweed sheets and things like that. Obviously a little bit on your vegan sushi is great, but potentially just having a quarter teaspoon of iodized salt per day will get you in the ballpark. So just finishing up here, a bit of a summary. The quote I like to use is eat mostly whole plants, eat enough total food, and supplement where you need to. Now, eating enough total food, part of that quote, isn't always going to be the case for someone who's in a fat loss phase. There's not going to be enough total food there to potentially provide all the nutrients we need. So that's where this presentation and supplementation comes in. So putting it all together, how does this look? Having a plate model 2 times per day that includes a focus on nutrient-dense whole vegetables, right? Then adding in fruits, berries, legumes, grains, and leafy greens daily. So have a look at that, daily dozen sheet. You can get the daily dozen app. Tick those off on a daily basis, starting to make a bit of a habit of including those foods on a regular basis. B12 supplement, absolutely essential, around 100 mcg per day. A vitamin D supplement, around 1,000 IUs per day, is a great place to start. And then 2 to 3 tablespoons of seeds daily. Ground flax seeds, chia seeds, hemp, and walnuts, or use an algae oil supplement daily. And 1 to 2 Brazil nuts to ensure you're getting that selenium. And finally, a quarter teaspoon of iodized salt. Lastly here, you could also consider an all-in-one supplement such as Terra Seed, which I use myself. It basically just provides all of those essential micronutrients, vitamins and minerals that we've already covered today, but also adds in a whole bunch of other ones that we want to top up as well. So it's kind of a safety net for myself. Even if I'm eating a really healthy, well-planned diet, I can still take this and know that I'm getting all of my nutrients. And then if I'm in a period where I potentially can't put as much focus on my diet as usual, it's still going to cover my bases. So it's a bit of a safety net. So you can look at things like Terra Seed as well as an all-in-one vegan supplement. But hopefully that helps outline a few of the essentials for supplementation for health, specifically on a fat loss phase. But obviously this does carry over beautifully into a maintenance phase or a surplus as well, where we should be focusing on these nutrients of focus anyways. We'll leave it there. Hopefully that was insightful for you.